Hello, hello. This is a review of Loki, the Disney Plus show that ended, 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? I don't know. I finished it, and then I was busy for like a week, traveling for like a week, basically. And then after that week, I was like, I don't know, lazy, and then I got sick. So, yeah, whatever. It's been 3 weeks now. Mixture of travel and sickness and laziness. But I'm good now. I'm good to record it, finally. I really did, yeah. I'm not going to talk about why I haven't recorded it anymore. That's boring. Boring content. Now, Loki on Disney Plus. That is some fun content. This is an interesting one. So, if you may have watched my WandaVision and Falcon and Winter... You may have watched my review that covered both WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier that was uploaded a few months back. You know, I believe I recorded and uploaded that a week before the Loki premiere, and now I'm so it's at this point it's been, I don't know, 7 weeks. If you've seen that review, you'll know that I thought both of those shows were flawed, obviously, but overall very impressive MCU efforts. I rated them both 8 out of 10, and upon mental review, I think Loki gets the same rating. But this is a weird one because both of those shows, WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier, were like 9s, were like 9 out of 10, until their last few episodes brought them down to an 8 out of 10. This show, Loki, is actually the opposite. I think it's, for a lot of it, a solid, consistent 7 out of 10 show that elevates to an 8 out of... that, like, it sticks the landing way better than the other two shows do, and that bumps it up. That's not the only thing that bumps it up, but it's a big one. If Loki had ended the way WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldier did, kind of poorly, it would have definitely easily been my least favorite of the MCU Disney Plus shows so far, I think. But it didn't. But I don't want to spoil the ending, so that's just to say that does factor into my rating, and I'll talk about the ending later in the video, and you'd spoil it. It's actually kind of hard to talk about the show without spoiling it, because this is one of those shows where, like, things are moving fast. Developments are made. Character dynamics are always changing. That's a good and a bad thing. It's good because, for the reason it's always good, it's exciting. It's engaging, fast. You don't want a show that drags for too long. Downside is that the plot... Downside is that sometimes the show feels like maybe it needed to stay within a status quo for a little longer. Like, let characters' relationships grow within, like, a status quo before you jumble it up. For example, the premise of the show, if you don't know, which I guess I should say, the premise of the Loki show is that if you watched Avengers Endgame, there's that scene where Loki gets the Tesseract because the time-traveling Avengers are messing things up. And then he's like, ooh, I got it, and he teleports away. Well, it turns out when he teleports away, he gets grabbed by the TVA, which is this time cops. Basically, Loki has to work with these time cops to catch, like, variants, and they arrest him because he's diverting from the sacred timeline, and it's like, oh, what's the deal with this time agency, and it's a little shady, and he has to work with Owen Wilson, and yeah. But back to my point that, like, I say all that because that is the status quo that the marketing and the show establishes. It stays in that status quo for, like, 2, 3 of the 6 episodes. It's only 6 episodes, by the way. So that, it's like, it's moving fast. Really fast. Kind of feels a little almost video gamey sometime. Like, each episode is almost a level or something. I don't know. It can be a little rough. There's some things they don't spend enough time on. The dynamic between Loki and Owen Wilson's character is amazing. one of the best parts of the show. I've always been like a relatively big. I've always been relatively an Owen Wilson fan, but this show really made me an Owen Wilson fan. This is like Owen Wilson given really good material, and like I love when like an actor that you thought was just like comedy, who's like getting older, like plays a role that really shows their like age and maturity as an actor. I feel like that is Owen Wilson in this show. He's not like, he cracks jokes and it fits with the MCU style, but he's not quipping in the way that MCU characters usually quip, that even Loki quips in this show. If anything, he's kind of a straight man to the quips. Like, he's funny, but in a, like, low-key, haha way, that actually is, like, provides, like, a grounded perspective compared to Loki's character. He's great. Owen Wilson as Mobius is, like, the best part of this show. Unfortunately, after a couple episodes, the dynamic shifts, and this is very, very light spoils. I'm being vague about it. The dynamic shifts from Loki and Owen Wilson doing buddy cop stuff to Loki and another character building a dynamic. And that dynamic, a lot of people have said this on the internet, I'm kind of in agreement. That dynamic it's not bad. I don't think it's bad. It's just not nothing about it doesn't make sense to me. Like, what happens within it makes sense, but it moves a little too quickly, and it's just not as strong as the, like, friendship bond between Loki and Owen Wilson. I also believe that without Owen Wilson's character making a genuine effort to make friends with Loki, the Loki in this show that is introduced as a full-on villain when he comes in, that Loki, he doesn't become the good Loki. He doesn't become a good person without Owen Wilson's characters there to guide him. So that dynamic carries the show. When Owen Wilson is absent for long periods, you really feel his absence. Especially there's two character dynamics they're trying to build, and one is just weaker than the other. That's just an unfortunate reality of it. And that's the one I feel like sometimes they give more emphasis to. And it's kind of frustrating. But the setup for the second season makes it seem like maybe there will be more of a focus on Loki and Mobius this time, which I hope that would be a good thing. So that's that. Now I've mentioned a flaw, so let's mention something that's like actually really that from episode 1, from the beginning, I was immediately like, okay, this show has the best style of best aesthetic of any of these MCU shows. WandaVision had a cool aesthetic going on with the TV show stuff, but by the end it just became any other MCU thing. Falcon and Winter Soldier always looked like any other MCU thing. Loki is unique, and that's actually maybe like the thesis point of what I like about Loki, is it feels the most distinct from the MCU, while also still very much able to impact the MCU, as we'll see when I talk about the ending, which hopefully I can talk about before my phone decides that it's out of recording space again, because it loves to do that whenever I record reviews. Anyway, this show just has such good, like, music. Like, just watch the title screen clip. I'm not gonna play it here, but look it up. Just watch, like, the titles. It's hard to describe from the mark, but it's just like the soundtrack is so like ethereal and just kind of like strange, and like it kind of feels like good, like really good Doctor Who in a lot of ways, the way it is aesthetically, but like without the like kind of 60s TV show cheeseballiness of Doctor Who. There's a little bit of that cheeseballiness, but I feel like when they use that corny 60s show aesthetic, they're aware of it. And a lot of times they don't need to use it to, like, make this appeal. Even, like, the way the title screen has this great, like, they do these flashing of different letters. You know what, never mind. I'm not going to explain it because it doesn't make any sense when I explain it. But it's just cool. The aesthetic of this show is just cool. The sound design, the set design, the way everything, like, meshes together makes it so even when you're watching an episode that focuses on a storyline you might not care about as much, there's still there's still a lot of fun visual stuff going on. And when I say fun visual stuff, I don't mean like, ooh, big action sequence or high energy explosions. Some of the best scenes in Loki are just two characters talking or one character reacting to something while the soundtrack swells. And to me, that's good cinematography. I'm not going to say specifically good TV making. It goes further than that. That's just good cinematography. Loki has great cinematography, great music, great sound design. All of that stuff is great. The script is just good, but all of that stuff is great. The script has great moments, but it's not quite as consistent as the visuals, which are just consistent. There's one episode where they go to this is going to sound lame, but it's like a convenience store in the future. Basically, the person they're hunting is hiding out in disasters, so they go to this future climate change disaster that's rampaging this store, and that sounds like it should be boring, but the way they introduce it is I was watching it. It's one of those moments where you go, oh, that looks cool. That was a cool intro sequence, and just the lighting for this whole sequence is great as well. It's something I can't describe, but this show just has pitch-perfect aesthetics that absolutely nail, all of the Doctor Who-y, Twilight Zone-y kind of vibes they're going for. It's like Doctor Who with a bit of the Twilight Zone, I think. But even comparing it to other things is underselling it, because it's very unique, and the soundtrack and the design of it's very all its own thing, and it takes inspiration from other things, but it's very much its own thing. And I guess I just negative to positive, and then a good structure of the video would then be to go to negative. But I don't have a negative right now. I actually think my main negative is just that some of the plot stuff doesn't work. I understand critics of this show who say that Loki is not... who wanted Loki... the show does a lot of talking about Loki being the god of mischief without much showing how he's actually a master schemer. They almost Flanderize Loki, but it's also kind of like the movies were already doing that. So I feel like instead it's setting up this narrative where Loki was never actually as cool as Loki was never actually as cool or threatening as people think he is. Which I agree with. I've always thought Loki was kind of an overrated character, who was not as cool as people like to say. If he wasn't one... just because he's one of the top-tier MCU villains doesn't mean he's a top-tier villain. I actually like that this show, even if it did feel like it dumbed him down sometimes, it also allowed him to be pathetic, which is something that the MCU hasn't really done. It allows him to be pathetic and explores why he's being that way. Which, when the movies have him be the butt of a joke, he's just the butt of a joke. And when the movies have him be cool or threatening, he's just cool and threatening. In this show, you see the layers of why he's pathetic here, why he's confident here. It all makes sense. So that was going to be a critique, but I think it just turned into an appraisal. Yeah, no, I'm more and more confident in my 8 out of 10 rating every day. This show's an 8 out of 10. It's good. The pacing's a little rough. It has dip points, but you should, especially if you like time stuff or multiverse stuff, you should watch it. It's a fun time, and there will be a season 2, which even that leads into my thoughts on the ending. So the ending of the show, for those who have seen it or don't care about spoilers or already had the end ruined for you, stop watching now. I purposefully, stopped the video between these bits, stopped my recording so that I could create a natural, moment for you to click off if you don't want to hear spoilers. Spoiler alert! The final episode really brought it all together for me. So the whole show, they're built. Loki and Lady Loki, who is the character I mentioned earlier and was being vague about that the relationship doesn't quite work as well. My issue is not that Loki falls in love with Lady Loki, or Sylvie, as they want to call her. She's a female variant of Loki. My issue is not that they fall in love. That's perfectly in character for Loki to do. It's that it happens too fast, and their chemistry is not that good. And it happens too fast, not on Sylvie, Lady Loki's part. It happens too fast on main character Loki's part. And once the show, like, I think it's in episode 3, it's episode 3 that, like, Loki and Sylvie are together for a whole episode, and there's no Mobius, and it's like, oh, this isn't bad, but I liked what we were doing before better. And that never really went away. But anyway, Lady Loki and Sylvie is a good character. Sylvie, Lady Loki. I'm going to call her Sylvie, because Lady Loki sounds more stupid the more I say it. Sylvie is a good character. Loki is a good character. The way they're meshed together doesn't ever quite work. But I like, once episode 3 hits, it becomes less Loki and Owen Wilson buddy cops. You basically only get one episode of Loki and Owen Wilson buddy cop, because episode 1 is set up. It becomes Loki and Sylvie teaming up to, like, try to figure out who's behind all this TVA stuff, take it down, which is a cool plot line. I just wish we spent a little more time in the, like, status quo that I thought the show was going to be about. Anyway, spoilers. I'm just going to say that until I, like, remember what the original point I was trying to make was. They're increasingly finding bigger and bigger, like, things going on behind this TVA. Like, they find out all the workers are actually just variants who were plucked out of their timeline. Just like Loki and Lady Sylvia. They find out that, like, when people get zapped and killed, they don't actually get killed. They get sent to this void realm. That's episode 5. It's this nice general building of stuff. But it's the last episode where they're going to the lair of, the big bad person behind it all that really, like, solidified this show for me. I love the villain. He Who Remains, who is not just He Who Remains, but he's also Kang the Conqueror, which is a character. I'm not a huge MCU nerd, but I know that that's a villain they're going to be using in Ant-Man 3, and this show basically sets up him as not just the villain of Ant-Man 3, but, like, kind of the next Thanos. The next, like, big MCU recurring threatening villain. In the coolest way. He shows up and he's like, yeah, I've been orchestrating this whole TVA thing. Basically, there's a bunch of variants of me that all discover multiverse travel at the same time. So there's infinite versions of me coming through different multiverses. That's what started the multiversal war that led me to create the TVA. Excuse me. That led me to create the TVA. And so he basically offers them, he's like, you guys can kill me if you want, because I know that's your plan, but if you kill me, someone worse is going to come through. A worse version of me is going to come through, which is a perfect way to set up this guy as like, okay, so we're going to see different versions of him throughout the MCU, and it's a perfect resolution to a season of TV which has basically just been about, okay, how... The part of the plot of season 1 of Loki is, like, how much can a bunch of different versions of Loki fuck with the timeline? And so it makes immediate perfect sense that the villain is also a person, just a regular dude whose infinite versions of himself fuck with the timeline. We just happen to have found the one who won, basically. And he basically says that, if you kill me, another one will come, and maybe that one will be less benevolent than me, less staying out of things than I am. Which is a great setup, and I love the actor who played Jonathan Majors. I've never seen him in anything before, but he's, like, so good in this role. The whole episode is basically him giving this exposition that I'm telling you now, and he makes it entertaining. He's so, like, expressive, and, like, he does that. He, like at one point he's like climbing on the table and like at one point he's like climbing up and like walking like this and like haha like it sounds dumb the way I'm describing it, like just haha jokery character, but it's not a jokery character at all. He's just kind of like a quirky weirdo, but not in the MCU like everyone's a quirky weirdo kind of way. It's very much a distinct characterization, and I don't even know how to describe it, but it made me like laugh with joy a lot of times. He's not even like cracking quips necessarily. He's just delivering this great energetic performance, and I have a feeling that every time we see this character from now on, it's going to be a slightly different version of the character. Like still the same character, but played in a different way. Some are more reserved, some are more aggressive, some are more angry, some are more happy. Like each version we see of Kang the Conqueror, He Who Remains, whatever you want to call him, is gonna be a different version. And that's like, as like an acting nerd, that's like super cool to me. And I can't wait to see that now. After this, I cannot wait to watch Ant-Man 3, which is something I didn't think I would ever say. But even all of that aside, the ending stinger of this episode, I loved. I love that too. So basically, Sylvie is like, I'm gonna kill He Who Remains, and Loki's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. They fight for a second. The fight choreography is kind of lame. There's not really many good fights in this show, which is kind of weird. I don't know if COVID like messed with their filming or whatever, but anyway, she like sends him back to the TVA and then kills Kang. And there's the stinger is so good. Loki's like, we gotta go rescue Sylvie. He runs up to Owen Wilson. He's like, we gotta go rescue Sylvie. And Mobius Owen Wilson is like, do I know you? And Loki's like, what? And then he looks up and he sees where the statue in the TVA of like the time lizards or something, I don't know, the time lords, basically, I don't know. The story for who built the TVA was that a bunch of like lizard people did it, and then that was just a fake story. But the statue of the lizard person has been replaced with the statue of a very menacing looking Kang the Conqueror, or He Who Remains, whatever he is. That basically what the villain said was going to happen happened. He was killed, and a new one replaced him, and Loki has just been dumped into that new timeline with that new person running it, and nobody remembers him. So now, like, that's a great TV cliffhanger. That's the kind of TV cliffhanger that is the reason I love TV, because it's like, oh, cool, now, like, the next season gets to be this whole, like, Loki has to figure out how to connect with everybody, hopefully get to do more, like, actual TVA buddy cop stuff, and, like, I feel like this first season was really good, but it was also, like, it was very much a pilot season where you're setting all of this stuff up, not just for the show, but for the MCU at large. And now with the second season, they can basically take this plot wherever they want without it having to interact with the MCU without it having to set stuff up for the MCU, because the MCU is like a crazy timeline jumble mess now, because killing the guy who made it creates the multiverse. You know, Doctor Strange movies got multiverse in the title. He's going to be dealing with that problem. I'm just in awe that this show was able to create such a good TV season 1 cliffhanger finale set up for the second season, and provide probably the biggest bit of setup for an MCU movie of any of these shows. The biggest, like, name drop. How did they do both and not have one sabotage the other? It boggles my mind. It's, like, perfect. I was, the whole way through the show, I'm like, this is good, but I don't think it's quite as good as WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. Now, with that ending, so perfectly setting up a season 2 and setting up MCU stuff independently, might be the best one of them all. It's certainly the most, like, unique, and being able to go into a season 2 makes it unique. Allows it to form its own identity without being basically just a mini-series or a stretched-out MCU movie. Like, now Loki is its own thing running alongside. It's great. I'm a much bigger TV person than movie person, actually. So that's, like, dope. I can't wait to watch Loki Season 2. That was my review. You should go watch Loki.